get into it. So if you're going to be looking at using an epoxy, make sure it's 100% solids epoxy. It'll meet your ANSI specifications of 118.3. It'll come all packed with all of the components. And you can use epoxy to both grout and in some cases install certain ceramic tiles in stone, like the glass we talked about or moisture-sensitive stone. One of the drawbacks, some people are sensitive to epoxy in the use, but a lot of that has been changed over the years and it isn't quite as bad. The advantages, stain resistant. Resistant to the many chemicals and foods that you're going to find in the home and in the laundry room or throughout the house. Mildew, mold, bacteria resistant. It's not going to grow in it. It can grow on it if the homeowner doesn't keep the place clean. She lays a layer of soap scum on there and it builds up. Mold can grow on the soap scum, but it's not growing in the epoxy. It has a high strength, will not crack or break down, color consistent, and less cost in maintenance. There is no sealing on epoxy, yes?
I just used it, and my contractor said that they absolutely hated the installation, that it took them so much longer to actually use it. What would you say in regards to that? Because they were saying, never expect this again because it took us 3 times as long.
The reason that they're saying that is it goes back to the guy that says he's been in the installation business for 20 years, typically. I've been doing this for 20 years and never had this problem. They're not used to the newer formulations of epoxy. When I first started in the industry, yes, epoxy was a nightmare. You had to use hot water to clean it, all kinds of pre-sealing of tiles, all kinds of things. The epoxies that we're seeing nowadays, there's a couple of them on the market that mix up like a traditional cement grout. When you spread them and use them, they don't even have that plastic sheen that some people don't like from epoxy. It looks like cement, but it is 100% solid epoxy.
It was your product.
It was the Opticolor.
Yeah, but it was
thank
just
you.
interesting that he said it took him significantly longer.
He needs to practice. I have contractors that would rather grout with that color because it cleans up neater. In a traditional cement grout, black, the pigment is floating, and that'll get over everything.
Right.
The pigment in an epoxy is part of the aggregate. So it's the color of the aggregate. It's not a pigment added into it. So there's nothing to separate out. So if it's black, it's a black sand in there, as an example.
Right.
So that can't smear on anything and leaving a residual. Yes, sir?
Can you use that on porcelain?
On porcelain, absolutely.
There was no scratching.
It won't scratch. On a very soft stone, I would test it first.
Okay.
But typically, you can even use it on a lot of your marbles. Or a real soft glaze. I would test it before I would start attacking
I think
them.
he was worried if it scratched.
Okay, and that he should have then tested in advance just to see. Again, the return on investment on it, you're a lot better off. This can be used as an installation for certain types of stones. For the toughest installations, what you're looking at is the industrial strength epoxies, where we get into things that are resistant to all of the different fats in the enzymatic cleaners. We're not going to find this in the homes. This is more on the commercial side, so we won't spend a lot of time on this, but we're getting into an industrial grade of epoxy grouts. Better resistance to the higher temperatures. So grout types. We have good, which is your typical polymer modified Portland cement. Better is your HCT technology. Best is an epoxy, and the best improved would be our industrial grade of epoxies. Not all grouts are created equal. Choose a grout, ask yourself, what's more important to the client? Saving a few pennies per square foot, or a cheaper product, or eliminating the problems. You know, the return on his investment. So what we saw today is, as a design team, gosh, you guys have some of the most fun things going. You get to pick out all these neat colors and textures and putting all these things together. But you also have this responsibility now of taking a look and making sure that all of this is the right products are being installed. We don't expect you to know product names and the methods of installation. That's not your job. That's why you're counting on a contractor. But you need to know enough to ask these questions. What are you going to do? How are you going to fix that? Is it in these tolerances? Did somebody test the backing of this? What type of grout are you planning on using? Those are the questions you need to know so that you can ask the installer to show them that you're informed, so they don't just try to sell you something and they're out of there. Because remember, the first call from that client It's not to that installer, it's to you. What's the matter with this job? Thank you again very much. I appreciate it.